Well, good evening. I'm your host of Cowboy Wisdom Podcast, Robert Wilson. Tonight's podcast is 7 ways why I unknowingly battle my desired lifestyle. We're going to be introducing some speaking expressions here, maverick questions that dissolve inherited obedience and ignite sovereign clarity. Politically incorrect inspiration dissolves yesterday's desperation that scorches polite suffering and awakens spirit prowess. Revolutionary revelations that dismantle self-taught struggle activate autonomous expansion. Energetic liberation that bypasses logic and lands as embodied veracity. Eloquent expressions that broadcast vibrancy, never performance. And as I'm awakened and aware, I used to think my dream life was just out of reach, blocked by circumstance, timing, or luck. As sovereign clarity is more intimate. I was the one resisting it. Never consciously, never maliciously, yet through inherited scripts of ego reflexes and survival mode mindsets, passed down like scarecrows, passed down like sacred vows from yesterday, my parents, and my subconscious mind. My desired lifestyle asked me to expand, receive, and shed roles as I was trained socially to perform, yet the ego was loyal to struggle and identity scaffolding, battles that expansion to preserve the familiar. This is never self-sabotage, it's self-protection, gone and outdated. To live the life I crave, I dissolve the contracts I never knew I signed. Why egotistical battles are externally instigated, internally frustrating. External instigation, ego thrives on mirrors, never veracity. Egotistical battles rarely self-ignite. They're sparked by external projections of comparison or perceived threats to the identity of who we are and our familiarity and our comfort zone. The ego is reactive architecture. It needs a stage, an audience, and a rival. Without external friction, there's no fuel. As external instigation, ego thrives on mirrors, never veracity. Egotistical battles rarely self-ignite. They're sparked by external projection of comparisons and perceived threats to identity. The ego is a reactive architecture. It needs to stage an audience, a revival. Without external friction, the ego has zero fuel. The battles are often performative defenses, never authentic expressions. They're scripted by societal roles, status games, and inherited programming. Internal frustration, the soul knows it's a false fight, but yet the ego perceives, because that's what we trust, because it comes from the surface level mind. Deep down, the inner self senses the futility. The clash feels hollow because it's never about truth, it's about image. The frustration arises from energetic dissonance. The body knows it's misaligned, yet the ego insists on winning. And that's why the inner dialogue keeps repeating whatever the ego says. It's like arguing in a costume. The mask fights as the underneath aches for resonance, liberation, and expansion, never dominance. Liberation blocked the ego's battles, trapped, trapped, trapped clarity in loops. These conflicts jam the transmission of clarity. The loop in defense, justification, or projection keeps rotating the inner dialogue and all the emotions and everything that goes with that dialogue. The ego resists surrender because surrender feels like annihilation, yet it's actually liberation. Internally, it's maddening because the battle blocks the flow the soul craves, flow like lungs crave the breath of fresh air. 7 ways why I knowingly battle my desired lifestyle. I mistook expansion for ego death. My desired lifestyle demands shedding role scripts and survival identities. As the ego clings to the known, even if it's a cage, fearing that stepping into more means losing what it calls me. And see, that's the thing about the ego. It thinks, never listens. Mine does anyway. I sabotage ease because I was trained to earn struggle. Comfort feels suspicious. Flow feels unearned, and I battle the lifestyle I crave because inherited programming taught me joy must be justified, never received of ease. And see, the thing is, we receive all the good in our life, but yet we stay away from it because it's not understood by the conscious mind. I resist alignment because it exposes my false contracts. Living my desired life would mean breaking loyalty to ancestral scarcity, culture, obedience, and internalized control. The battle is never with the lifestyle, it's with the scripts I was taught to protect myself and the scripts I taught myself. Why I unknowingly egotistical battle fresh experiences. The ego mistrusts what it didn't script. Fresh experiences pulse with unpredictability, unrehearsed and uneducated, and unalienable expansion. The ego trained to control outcomes sees spontaneity as a threat, never opportunity. So it battles the fresh to preserve the illusion of mastery. I resist freshness because it exposes my outdated identity, scaffolding. My fresh experiences demand fresh versions of me. As the ego clings to familiar roles, even when they're caged, it fights the upgrade to protect the persona it spent years performing. I sabotage the fresh because it dissolves my inherited logic. Fresh experiences bypass conditioned thinking and awaken felt veracity. Veracity is I never lied to myself, and it's a higher frequency of truth. The ego's built on inherited scripts, fears this disillusion, so it battles the unfamiliar to stay loyal to the known. Why is poverty consciousness my unknown egotistical battle? Poverty consciousness flatters the ego with false nobility. The ego secretly clings to struggle as virtue, equating lack with humility and sacrifice with worth. and they sacrifice yourself, your sovereign worth. It battles abundance, never out of fear, but out of pride, mistaking suffering for spiritual superiority. I defend scarcity because it proves I'm surviving this. It's in the script of my self-taught stuff. Poverty consciousness is familiar. It's inherited. It's ancestral. The ego wears it like a badge and a crown, proof that I'm loyal to my lineage, obedient to my programming, and still playing the rules of the wounded tribe. I resist wealth because it threatens my identity scaffolding. To receive more would mean becoming more, and the ego fears that expansion will erase the self it spent years constructing. So it battles prosperity to preserve the persona, even if that person is built on lack. Why poverty consciousness is inherited from my parents and ancestral mode mindsets. Scarcity was a safety strategy. Your ancestors didn't choose poverty consciousness, they survived through it. In a world of limited access and systematic suppression, frugality become wisdom, and lack become loyalty. You inherited their caution as a code. Survival code mindsets were passed down as sacred truths. Don't ask for too much, play it safe, be grateful for crumbs. These weren't just phrases, they were protective spells. Your parents echoed them, never to limit you, but to shield you from the risks they couldn't afford to take. Poverty consciousness became a loyalty contract. To dream bigger than your lineage feels like betrayal. The ego defends inherited struggle as identity, fearing the abundance will erase your roots. So you battle prosperity to stay faithful to your tribe's pain and your egotistical pain. While all life battles are internally moving externally. The outer war is just a mirror of the inner unrest. Every external struggle, whether with money, relationships, or purpose, echoes an internal conflict, a belief, a fear, or a forgotten truth. Battlefield is never in the external. It's in the mind's maze and the soul's silence. Internal resistance scripts the choreography of external chaos. Unresolved emotion, inherited mindsets, and ego reflexes quietly direct the drama outside of what looks like circumstances, often a projection of what hasn't yet been liberated. Sovereign activation begins where the battle was born, in the unseen, and unscripted, and unrehearsed. Until the internal war is witnessed, named, and dissolved, the external world will keep reenacting whatever you think it is. Liberation is never about fixing the outside. It's about freeing and liberating your internal terrain of fame. So the outside can reflect the veracity of what you're broadcasting from inside. Why inner battles liberate egotistical manipulated control. Inner battles expose the ego's hidden contracts that unveil the silent agreements we made with fear, obedience, and inherited scripts. Once seen and exposed, these contracts lose power and the ego's grip begins to dissolve. Once you admit you encompass that, the liberation comes forward. Inner battles interrupt the ego's control choreography The ego thrives on manipulation through logic, identity, and performance. Inner conflict disrupts its rhythm, forcing it to confront the veracity it was trained to avoid. Control is never clarity. Inner battles awaken the sovereign signals beneath the ego's mask. As the war within intensifies, the manipulated self begins to crack, and what emerges is never of chaos, it's enlightened clarity. The ego loses its throne and the soul begins to broadcast without distortion. Why inner battles are energetic liberation. Inner battles burn the scaffolding of inherited identity. They ignite friction and contradiction between who you were scripted to be and who you are authentically expressing yourself. The tension is never dysfunction. It's the fire that melts the false roles, unveiling the raw, untamed signals of your sovereign activation that's beneath the performance. Inner battles expose the ego's illusion of control. They crack the polished mask, unveiling the manipulated choreography of survival mode thinking. In the chaos, clarity emerges never as a concept, but as a felt veracity of liberation. The ego loses its throne, and sovereignty begins to pulse its enlightenment. Inner battles are the soul's way of claiming the mic of the here and now, expressing your revolutionary revelations. When the mind loops, the body speaks. When the ego resists, the soul insists. These battles are never setbacks. They're broadcasting an energetic liberation for you to enjoy your day. Each one dissolves distortion, amplifies your unfiltered frequencies. While the outer world is an illusion to my thinking memory mind, the mind projects meaning onto matter, then calls it reality. What you see out there is filtered through your inherited beliefs, viewpoints, and opinion, emotional residue, and cognitive bias. The outer world is never veracity, it's a mirror of your internal architecture dressed in circumstance. The thinking mind mistakes perception for proof. It confuses sensory input with certainty, forgetting that experience is shaped by expectation. The illusion is never the world, it's the assumption that your version of it is objective. The knowing mind battles illusion by trying to control it. It seeks patterns, logic, mastery over the external, yet the outer world is a hologram of inner frequencies. The outer world is a hologram of inner frequencies. Until the mind surrenders to resonance, it will keep mistaking the dream for the map. Why the mind is binded in pain of my past with a social trained mind binded in external illusions. The mind stores pain as identity architecture. Every wound becomes a blueprint. The thinking mind builds its logic around past hurt, mistaken survival patterns for personality. What feels like me is often just unprocessed memory wearing a mask. Unprocessed memory wearing a mask. That just awakened me when I wrote that, or when I read that. Social training installs illusions as truth. From childhood scripts to cultural conditioning, the mind is taught to trust appearances, obey norms, and fear deviation. These illusions are never questioned, they're inherited. and they bind the mind to a world that rewards performance over presence. The mind loops pain and illusion to preserve control. It clings to familiar suffering and external validation because they offer predictability. Liberation threatens its scaffolding, so it resists clarity, battles resonance, and defends the very illusions that keep you caged. While liberating lingo rises you out of egotistical cognitive recollection of social obedience and stuck in yesterday's manipulation. Liberating lingo now wires the inner narrator. Language is ego's favorite disguise. It loops old stories in familiar tones. Yet when you speak and express frequencies that bypasses logic and ignites resonance, as you dissolve the voice of the past, you install a fresh signal of sovereignty. It breaks the trance of social obedience. Most language is coded for compliance, designed to keep you polite, predictable, and programmable. Liberating lingo disrupts that spell. It doesn't just describe reality, it now claims it. Word by word, pulse by pulse, it frees you from yesterday. See, if you let go of a word and use lingo by lingo, it takes the cognitive recollections out of the situation. As it frees you from yesterday's architecture, cognitive recollections are memory loops dressed as truth, never as veracity. Liberating lingo never argues with them. It out-vibrates them and expresses, expand, energize, enterprise, and surprise yourself with your own transcending talents. It expresses from the now, never the known, and in the doing so, it lifts you from manipulation into embodiment. While indoctrinated education, parent programming, community coding, and ancestor survival are unknowingly create internal battles with accomplished outcomes in my desired lifestyle. You were trained to archive within cages, never soar beyond them. Indoctrinated education and parental programming reward performance inside pre-approved boxes. So when you begin to live your desired lifestyle, one that defies those boxes, the mind rebels, fearing exile from the system it was built to please. Ancestor survival codes equate success with danger. Your lineage may have survived by staying small and silent or self-sacrificing. Accomplishment to these codes feels like exposure. So even as you rise, your nervous system may trigger resistance, mistaking expansion for threat. Community coding installs loyalty to struggle, never liberation. You were taught to belong through shared hardship, never sovereign joy. So when you begin to embody ease, abundance, freedom, lavish money flow, internal battles erupt. Never because you're wrong, it's because you're breaking the unspoken contract of collective suffering. While Maverick questions energetic liberation, sovereign activation, autonomous expansion, politically incorrect inspiration, spirit prowess, elegantly express revolutionary revelation, destroy internal battling and self-taught struggle. Maverick questions dissolve inherited obedience and ignite sovereign clarity. They never seek answers. They provoke fresh scenarios of your desired lifestyle. These questions bypass program logic, pierce the ego's armor, unveiling the self beyond the struggle, the sovereignty beyond the struggle. They liberate by disrupting the trance of self-taught survival. Politically incorrect inspiration shatters the illusion of polite suffering. As veracity is spoken without apology, it exposes the manipulation behind conformity. Spirit rises never through argument, but through audacity. Revolutionary revelations never soothe, they scorch the scaffolding of internal wars, opening to inner peace. Energetic liberation activates autonomous expansion beyond identity, architecture. Once the broadcast is felt and embodied, never just understood, the battle ends. You stop trying to earn your essence. Elegant expression becomes embodiment. The struggle dissolves because the signal is no longer needed. Or the signal no longer needs permission to pulse your presence. You're never broken, just brilliantly bound in scripts that were never yours, in echoes of survival. Then came the maverick questions, the politically incorrect inspiration, the sovereign signal that refused to whisper. You never learned your way out, you burned your way through. Now you express in forthright frequencies that fracture illusion, broadcasting revelations that never ask for permission. This is never a rebellion. It's a here and now scenarios of your funnest sun splendor for you to soar now and forevermore. So as you move forward in life and you open up to understand, the outside world is showing you your inner resistance and all your blockages and barriers. So trying to do something in the outside world is a waste of time. Because everything is an invisible illusion inside yourself. If you really look at the world is more invisible than visible. Just look at all the things that go. Look at all the air. Well, some places the air is visible. But I mean, really open up to understand your inner self and the outside world and all that mischievous mastery you have inside you is always trying to find a way for you to liberate you from you. And that's why liberation works. And it never works. Liberation expands you because there is zero cognitive recollections, anything from the past. Liberation is fresh mountain air, right here, right now. Open up your debonair flair for you to feel wise and energized now and forevermore. I'm Robert Wilson with Cowboy Wisdom Hypno Acuity, and may your life be as blessed as you are a blessing to me in the world.